Hey all, so I was watching a bit of a Final Fantasy XIV stream earlier. What can I say? I am a glutton for vicariously experiencing that content again. The streamer is named Taliesin, and he is going through Shadowbringers right now. You know, Final Fantasy XIV's critically acclaimed expansion, one of the best expansions, an expansion of such high caliber that all other expansions quiver before it. Anyways, that really isn't the point. He was doing a leveling roulette and was sorted into a level 50 dungeon. Being in the level 70 range now, Tally felt that losing access to higher level abilities, it just wasn't very fun, and asked, why not just scale us down and let us keep the abilities? I think we may have all felt this way at some point. I know whenever I get thrown into a level 17 Copperbell Mines, I let out an audible, okay, here we go again. So is this a good idea then? Is that something Final Fantasy XIV should consider? It's something that WoW does, right? Is this one of the features that Final Fantasy XIV should adapt? In my opinion, the short answer, no, absolutely not. WoW did something where they basically made every expansion available without level mattering with a feature known as Chromie Time. Since the level of your character can now be anywhere from 10 to 50, they had to scale all the dungeons to fit within those ranges. So what this means is that you have higher level players with access to all of their higher level abilities being thrown into dungeons with lower level players with many less abilities, and then they try to scale the players to make it all work. However, this tended to be problematic. Back when I did play WoW, I'd be in dungeons where lower level players would completely obliterate the damage meters. As an example, I played as a restoration monk running through the dungeons to level up, and for a long time, I was the top of the damage meters, and topped by a huge margin to boot. It probably didn't feel very good being a DPS and seeing a healer doing that much more damage than you. All that to say is, the dungeon scaling was not very good. What this means is that the dungeons aren't an accurate representation of how they used to be. World of Warcraft also has a feature called Timewalking Dungeons, where they bring back older dungeons and raids and scale them up for the current expansion. And this would be the closest approximation to Final Fantasy XIV's roulette system. It's WoW's way of having players being able to, re-experience the older content. During the initial launch of Shadowlands, as an example, they brought back a raid called Ulduar for their Timewalking event, which is one of the most critically acclaimed and most beloved raids that World of Warcraft has ever made. To this day, it is one of my favorite raiding experiences of all the MMOs I've played. It was a gorgeous raid and had some of the most incredible boss fights. Firefighter is still one of the best raid encounters I have ever played and progressed on. The thing is, Blizzard changes its combat systems pretty much every single expansion. They change the talents, player power is altered, there are different external factors introduced, and having all that being available in older content has a real profound impact on how it will be experienced. Ulduar was designed around systems from Wrath of the Lich King, so yeah, going back into it with Shadowlands systems, it didn't matter much that they scaled up the boss's damage and HP. Their mechanics were designed around Wrath of the Lich King systems. In short, players are much more powerful today than they were in Wrath of the Lich King. We are afforded much more utility and survivability, and that makes it a very different experience. Final Fantasy XIV, on the other hand, with the way it handles its systems, means that dungeons and raids are very close approximations to how they were when they first released. Now, that isn't to say that the Final Fantasy XIV developers never tweaked or changed the combat systems throughout the years. They most certainly did. Abilities have been changed and or removed, and there was also a huge overhaul in Stormblood that completely removed TP. And no, I don't mean toilet paper. TP meant technique points, and it was a resource that physical DPS would need to use in order to use their abilities. Some abilities, like AoE abilities, would cost a lot of TP, and you would run out very fast if you spammed those abilities. Being able to spam abilities did change the way dungeons were run. Tanks could now much more easily handle threat, because of the threat generation changes, and because they could spam their AoEs without fear of running out of TP. The same went for the DPS jobs. They could use abilities all the time without fear of running out of TP. Let me be perfectly clear, it was an amazing change that made the combat much more fluid. So, as you can see, I am perfectly aware that Final Fantasy XIV Dungeons and Raids are not going to be the exact experience as they were when they were released. However, they are still very close to that original experience. Final Fantasy XIV developers aren't introducing new systems every single expansion that only matter for the expansion that, they were released in. For the most part, outside of the massive TP change, the Final Fantasy XIV developers have just been expanding on the current systems, not redoing them every single expansion. That is the big reason why WoW Dungeons and Raids feel so different from whenever they first came out, and why it really doesn't matter so much that they allow you to use abilities from other expansions, in content that wasn't designed around those abilities. Most of the systems that the older content was designed around has been taken out of the game anyways. You can't use the Legion Legendary progression system anymore. Corruption from Battle for Azeroth? It's gone. So, really, what does it matter anymore? I actually find it to be a little sad that, in World of Warcraft, you really can't get those authentic experiences, outside of, joining a classic server. Like, if I really wanted to do Ulduar and have that authentic Ulduar experience, I would have to wait for the Wrath of the Lich King classic server, level up a character to 80, because there is no way in hell I'd purchase a skip. And I think that is kind of lame, to be honest. Final Fantasy XIV doesn't have that problem, so introducing it by giving players access to abilities outside the content that those abilities were designed for, well, it seems a little bit silly to me. So, is it awkward going into older content and losing access to abilities? Sure. Is it the end of the world? Absolutely not. I think it's worth preserving those experiences as close as possible, even if it means having a little bit of awkwardness. Anyways, what do you think? Is the way that Final Fantasy XIV are handling older content to your liking? Or would you prefer to have all the abilities and be scaled down? And that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and as always, have a great day.